Have you ever noticed that you're working very hard, you're earning what you think is actually higher than what you used to earn, but your money is still not adding up? Groceries are still expensive, fuel is still rising, transport is still up there, everything is now not very affordable to you. Today, we're going to talk about inflation. Inflation is the tax which doesn't come to you with a receipt. It doesn't give you notifications. You don't see it. And most of the time we don't even complain about it, but we feel it. So in this video, we're actually going to learn what inflation really is, why is it that people still feel stuck even with raises, and how to stop losing to inflation. Stay with me. Inflation is not prices rising up. That is the effect of inflation. Inflation happens when a currency loses its value. For example, if initially $100 could buy you groceries, fuel, and maybe dinner, but currently that same $100 can only get you groceries, that is inflation. Inflation doesn't show up as an error. It shows up and we quickly adjust. We quickly adjust without asking questions, and that's how it robs us. We always complain about taxes, we always complain about other things, but about inflation, we all keep quiet because we adjust ourselves every single time it happens. And do you know what we say? That is just how life is now. That is the much money can afford right now. Or we even say, money don't go far anymore. We adjust quickly, quietly, legally, without even asking questions. Because who are you going to ask? Inflation is the only tax that people pay without complaining. Because when taxes rise up, we complain. But when inflation comes in, we adjust and we complain to ourselves. When you see the price going up because it's an after effect of inflation, you say, I wish I had bought it yesterday. The problem is not you not buying it yesterday. The problem is inflation. And one of the things we really need to be careful of is savings. When you are saving, let's say you're saving in an MMF and the current inflation rate is at 6% and your MMF percentage is at 5%, you are actually losing money. And that's why most of the time they advise you that whenever you are saving or whenever you are making an investment, you need to consider the percentage, you need to check the rate so that you are able to beat inflation. That is actually the main purpose of investing, so that your money doesn't remain idle and lose value with time. Because if you keep that money in the bank, it's not growing, it's not beating inflation. It means it's losing its value. So one of the things you really need to be careful about is savings. Where are you saving? And how much are you earning at the end of the day? Because inflation punishes savers. It also punishes fixed income earners because at the end of the month you're still waiting for the same exact amount of money you were given last month, even though there has been inflation. But inflation is beneficial to investors, it is beneficial to asset owners and people who actually understand leverage. Please don't forget to check my video on leverage and how you can actually use time, money, and knowledge as leverage. That's why the rich don't fear inflation. They reposition themselves. They take advantage of it. They buy more, they hire more, and they build more systems around their wealth. Inflation only punishes the poor people and the ignorant people who don't want to learn and know more about inflation. So let's talk about raises. There's inflation going on, and so you get a raise in your job, and your raise is currently at 6%. Yet, the rate of inflation is at 8%. You have not won. You have lost. You have actually been dragged backwards. Because if the rate is at 8 and you have only added 6% to it, what happens? You have lost 2%. And that's why raises don't measure up to inflation. Because Raises don't happen immediately. There is an inflation. Prices adjust immediately, but raises don't. Why? Because employers always try to protect their profits, and the government manages inflation. So what happens to the employees? They wait and wait until inflation has risen to 2% higher. That's when they give you a raise to 6%. Yet, there's that 2% still hanging. That's why raises don't catch up with inflation. The delay is actually what causes people to fall behind. And that's why relying on a fixed income salary is dangerous in a very high inflationary world. That's why most of the time they will always advise you to look for side hustle, look for some other thing to do so that you can catch up with the inflation. Because in the world of today, inflation rate is always going up and up and up. A job gives you income, but inflation demands growth. If your income doesn't grow as faster as inflation, your lifestyle is always left below. And that's why so many people get themselves in debt because they are trying to reach the level they should be in, but they are actually not meeting it because of inflation. And they don't understand this. And the part that actually makes it even more ironic is when people start saying, I have cash, I'm safe. Cash is not safety. Cash is liquidity. Safety depends on context. And in the context, we are talking about an inflationary world where inflation is high and high each and every single day. Holding cash in your hands is very risky because the more you hold it, the lower its value. You're not earning anything, you're not meeting up with the inflation rate. It means your money is losing value. It means your money is losing its value with time because of the percentages increase in inflation. Yet, for you, you feel safe holding that money. And that's why nowadays we rarely have people who keep money at home. But if you're still someone who keeps your money at home because you don't trust the bank, go into an investment firm, ask them to advise you. Of course, you will always find advisors willing to help you, advisors willing to tell you what to do and what not to do. Just trust somebody. Just trust them. They will help you get that 6% back instead of just having that money in your house or in your hand. Because at the end of the day, saving is just a tool. It's not a destination. Saving is meant to help you keep that money safe and to help you grow that money. So don't handle saving as a destination. And as you save, of course, you always need to have a goal because cash is meant for movement, not parking. If you take that cash and always keep it in one single place, it's not growing, it will lose its value. So just remember that cash should always be in movement and not parking. Inflation is unequal. It doesn't hit everyone the same way. If you have assets, actually, inflation favors you. Of course, there are some liabilities that we have and we always think that they are assets, but they are not assets. For example, if you own a car, you are in charge of repairing this car every single month. You fuel the car, you do maintenance. That is not an asset. That is a liability. But if you have a car and you rent this car to Uber and they always give you some income, of course when you want to use it, you still use it. That is an asset. Of course, we're going to talk about the difference between a liability and an asset later on. But I just want you to know that inflation deals with people unequally. Especially if you don't have assets, it will always be mean to you. It will always make you regret your life. And when we talk about the unequalness of inflation, for example, inflation hits harder on renters because of course once the inflation goes high, the rent goes high. And that is the profit to the owner. Inflation hits so high on employees, but not on the business owner. And that's why so many people are always advised to be entrepreneurs. So when inflation goes up and the prices go up, you make more money. So what happens is, for those who own, for those who have an understanding of leverage, for those who have assets, inflation works in their favor. Not because they are lucky, but because they have positioned themselves in a place where they are able to grow. No matter the movement in the market, they will always grow. That's why people talk about investing. That's why people talk about being an entrepreneur. And that's why we talk about having assets, because actually those are some of the key main things that make people wealthy. So let's talk about solutions. Solution number one, have more than one income source, because having just one salary, having just one job, having just one income source is very fragile. As time goes by, you will need to also adjust yourself, because you're now paying more rent, you're paying more on grocery, you need to adjust. So have more source of income. Two, have more assets under your name. Don't just hold cash. Don't just buy things that actually don't add value whenever there's inflation. Buy assets. And lastly, think long term. Whichever strategy you're thinking about, whichever plan you have, please strategize for a long term. Be patient, especially if you're planning to get into investments. It is not a get rich quick scheme. Even those who think that getting yourself into forex will actually make you a billionaire overnight, it is not true. You will get there, you will lose money. So be patient and think long term. Inflation is not the enemy. Ignorance is. And with time, inflation actually reflects on how poor your financial structure is. Once you understand inflation, you stop asking, why is everything so expensive? And you start asking, how do I position myself to take advantage of what is going on currently? And that mindset change will actually help you to get yourself in a position where you are able to always counteract inflation and be able to build wealth slowly, surely. In my next video, I'll be talking about inflation versus investment. Why cash loses and assets win. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching this video. Stay blessed by the best and see you in my next video.